Everyone, and welcome to a new video. Today's video is going to be a continuation of the content that I've been posting throughout this week. By now I'm pretty sure I've had a few vlogs go up from my trip to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and I've also had a fabric haul go up that shared some of my raw material purchases on that trip. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, a few weeks ago my mom and I went up to Lancaster, Pennsylvania and spent about 4 days going around the surrounding area and into pretty much every antique and fabric shop we could find. It was a lot of fun and we left with a lot of goodies. So I vlogged that trip in more detail if you're curious of seeing more of the interiors of the shops as well as my thoughts on them. But in this video I'm going to show you all of the things I purchased in the order that I purchased them. The first antique store I went into was called Mill Property Antiques, which I'd never been to before and didn't have high expectations for based on the reviews and photos I'd seen online, but ended up being really nice. So I purchased this print, and this is a print of a fashion plate from the 1860s. It does say reproduction in the corner, so it's not an original fashion plate, but I wanted to purchase this just because I wanted to use it for reference alone. I really love the white dress with all of the flower detailing on it, and I really want to make a reproduction of that. So I purchased this just for reference since I wasn't sure I'd be able to find the image online. I also purchased a variety pack of buttons, and the reason I'm holding it this way is because it crinkles very badly. It was $4.50 for the lot, and then it was 10% off of that, and it includes probably well over 100 buttons. So there are some larger ones from the 1950s, and then some slightly larger molded shank ones, which I think are from the 80s. So this isn't an expensive or rare lot of buttons by any means, but for a total of about $4, I thought it was worth adding them to my collection. I also made 2 clothing purchases from them. It's interesting, the past couple of times my mom and I have gone up to Pennsylvania and gone into a whole bunch of antique stores, we haven't been able to find any clothing, like maybe a rack of clothing in the several dozen stores we go into. But this time, pretty much every store we went into had clothing of some sort, so I ended up buying quite a lot of clothing, and a lot of it was somewhat impulse buys because I couldn't take my time to really consider them in great detail before purchasing them. So I'm probably going to end up selling some of the pieces that I show you. In fact, I've already sold quite a few of the pieces that I purchased that just didn't work for me. But these 2 dresses I'm definitely going to keep because I love them. So the first dress I bought is a white, and it is from the 1950s, that has a lot of almost Edwardian detailing on it, just with the type of lace they used and all of the hand eyelet work that was done on this. It also has pin tacks on the hem, which is very reminiscent of how Edwardian chemises were done. Now, I really debated about getting this dress because it had quite a bit of damage to the waistline. I also thought it was a little bit small for me and that it might be a little bit too youthful and young looking on me, but my mom convinced me to get it, and I'm really glad that she did. Now that I have this dress home and I have it repaired and I've been able to try it on and style it, I think it's just a fantastic piece, and I'm so glad that I have it. This is dress number 2 from the same shop, and this one isn't on a hanger, and it's kind of wrinkled because I actually wore this yesterday. But this is a homemade 1950s dress, and it's made from a lovely blue floral quilting cotton-ish type of fabric. So it's a very durable kind of thick cotton while still being very breathable. And this has a super wide collar, it has hand-worked buttonholes and white buttons, and it closes with a zip up the side. And it actually even has a pocket too, which is great. So I feel like this is a little bit more colorful than I wanted my mid-century wardrobe to be, but I also think it's a really fun dress, and I really love the fabric that it's made out of. Since it is such a durable material, I feel very comfortable wearing that dress and washing that dress. In fact, the reason it's dirty is because I wore it yesterday when I was taking my dog to the vet, which isn't something that I do with a lot of vintage clothing. The next shop we went to is right next to Mill Property Antiques, and it was called Morgantown Market. Picked up 2 spools of lace. Now, I don't think these are particularly old, but they were $2 each, I think, and I felt like that was a reasonable price regardless of the age of them. I also purchased some swans from this store. So these swans have a bit of a story. Last year, when my mom and I were going to all of these stores, we saw a whole bunch of the swans, and I talked myself out of getting them every time because I didn't really have a place to put them, and they really didn't work with the color scheme of my bedroom or my sewing room. But when we got home, they were one of the things that I really regretted not getting. So this time around, I knew I wanted to try and find them, and I ended up coming across them in the 3rd store we went to, and they were pretty inexpensive too. I think they were $5 each. So I purchased 2 of these little ones, which are pretty much identical to the ones that I saw last year and didn't end up purchasing. I also purchased this one. So this is like the mommy swan, and the other 2 were made by Annex, and this one is made by Gemini, which is an extra fine porcelain brand, and it has the same color scheme as the other two, so it's all edged and outlined and detailed with gold. So on day 2, we started with the Lancaster County Antique Market, which is in Adamstown, Pennsylvania. And the first booth I walked into in this store was right up my alley. They had buttons, they had lace, they had scraps of fabric, and they also had McCall's magazines. So I purchased 3 of them, and they're all from autumn months. So this one's from September, I have one from October, and then I guess this is more of a winter one. It is from January. So I purchased these just because I thought they would be fun for fashion reference, especially when it comes to coats and more wintry apparel, which I'm going to be trying to make for myself this year. I also bought a little ship from this store. So I purchased this because I really want to make one of those obnoxious 18th century headpieces that have a ship on them. And though they're traditionally only worn as part of court ensembles, and even then I think they were considered quite obnoxious and quite rare, I thought this one was small enough that I might be able to use it for a more casual ensemble, even if it isn't accurate for a more casual ensemble. Though once I hold this up to my head, it doesn't look very small at all. And then I bought some clothing. So the first is a 2-piece suit set from the 1950s. So it has a fairly fitted skirt with darts in it to shape it, and then a metal zipper up the side. It does flare out slightly at the bottom, and then it has a kick pleat at the back. And it's really, really impeccably made. It's a lovely piece. And then this is the jacket. So it's got really cool black souttage detailing around the neckline, and then it's embellished with rhinestones as well. It's also got little pleats around the cuffs for shaping, and then it has buttons down the front, though a couple of the buttons are missing, so I'm gonna have to replace them with something. So I ended up purchasing that for around $30, I wanna say. I think that was how much I paid. And then this dress was under $30, and it is a smart set dress from the 1940s. And this isn't my favorite piece. In fact, I've really highly considered selling this, but it's not in the best condition, so I don't think I'd be able to get a lot of money for it. I'd kind of rather keep it than get 20 bucks for it. But it's a really neat, larger size 1940s dress, and it's covered with this metallic stitching. And the stitching is supposed to be red, but it's faded to more of a silver color at certain points. And the stitching has actually faded completely at high stress areas, like underneath the arm side. But I still love it because it's metallic and it's stripy and it's navy and it has these really cool plastic buttons with rhinestones in them. And I think it's a really neat kind of unique piece, at least when it comes to the textile. So though it's a little worse for wear and it's a little bit scratchy to actually wear, I do want to try and wear this piece out and see what I think before I give it up. The next place we went was Adam's Antiques Annex, and this is really close to the other store, like within walking distance of each other if you don't mind crossing a busy road. And I did make 2 purchases from them. So the first purchase is a Zephyr Felt Henry Pollock Incorporated hat, and it's just your typical kind of red hat. It's got a stiff bow made out of satin, as well as a stiffer satin brim around it. It's in really good condition. I don't see any pulls, I don't see any stains or fading or marks on the satin, and it fit my head, which is a rarity for vintage hats since I have a large head. I also felt like this was a color that I would wear quite a lot, especially in the winter, so I decided to snatch it up. And I also purchased a brooch from them, which would actually match the hat very well. This is just a plastic or resin molded brooch, and it is in the shape of a bow, and it could be from the 1930s, but I could also see it being from the 1980s. This was a style that was popular for many, many years. Then we went to my new favorite antique mall in the area, and it's called Mad Hatter Antiques. Unfortunately, I didn't get a lot of footage here, and that's because I was so excited by everything around me, and I was also carrying so many things that I intended on purchasing. So my smallest purchase from them was this little brooch, and this is actually a brooch made out of shells, which I didn't realize at the time. I just gravitated towards it because it was in colors that I wear often, but as it turns out, all of the flowers are made up of the tiniest little shells, so now I think that's even cooler than I did when I bought it. I also bought a McCall's printed pattern, and this is from the 1940s in a size 14. I kind of forgot that a size 14 in vintage patterns is for a 32-inch bust, so I would definitely have to do some grading to get this to fit me, but I really like the design and the unique shoulder detailing, so I decided to get it anyway. And then I purchased some clothing. So the first dress I bought was on a rack that was separate from the rest, and it only had a few dresses on it, and they were all larger sizes, and they were all really inexpensive. So this dress was made in Ephrata, Pennsylvania by the brand Dutch Made, and it cost me a whopping $22. Now, even though this dress was relatively inexpensive, I did debate about getting it for quite a while. I felt like the print was just a little bit much for me, and I wasn't sure how well it was going to fit me. And I still have those concerns. I don't love the print on me, even though I do love the print in general. And the fit on it is kind of strange. It's tight for me in the shoulders, but it's loose in the bust and waist. So it kind of droops down in a way that I don't think is fully flattering. So I don't know if I'm going to keep this dress, but I do really like it and I want to get a few wears out of it before I decide whether or not it's worth selling. Now the next piece I have no regrets over. I think it's fabulous, and it is a blouse from the 1950s, and it is made entirely out of nylon, which I've never seen before. So it has completely sheer sleeves, and then the body of this is made out of a thicker opaque nylon that has all of this pleating and ruche detailing over top of it, done with the thinner nylon. So it has a lot of texture, and it has a really cute collar and this really cool zigzag button detailing down the front. Final item I bought from them is a skirt, and this is a homemade skirt. It's made out of a light blue cotton, which is covered in embroidered dots, and it has this overlay which splits at the front, which has this really pretty scalloped lace edging on it and floral detailing. So it's really cute and it fit me really well. The main problem with this though is that the waistband is very either faded or stained. I think it's faded, but does lean a yellowish brown. So it does have that tiny flaw, but it was priced accordingly. I think it was $18 or $22. The next day we went to one of my favorite antique places in the area, which is Black Swan Antiques. I ended up getting a hat from this store, and this was $7 I think, and it's in pretty much perfect shape. So it's from the 1950s and it is covered with iridescent sequins and then these little velvet butterflies or bows. I'm not sure which they are. And then there's brown scalloped fringing that hangs down from the front of it. So it's a really cool, very detailed hat. Then I bought this brooch, and I think this is a Victorian or Edwardian brooch, but someone who knows more about jewelry will have to tell me. It is an entirely black brooch, and it's got a black metal base, and then on top of it there are all of these beautiful rhinestones. And I believe it is supposed to be a pansy. That's what the shape of it makes me think of. But I really like the sparkle that this has and the size of it. I thought it would look really nice on the collar of a dress, so I really hope that I can not necessarily design a dress around this, but use this to accentuate some detailing on a dress that I make in the future. So this is a lot of 4 vintage buckles, and it was $3 for the lot. So in this there are 2 superior buckles in pink, which I believe are from the 1940s or 50s. And there's also this really cool checkered board buckle. I thought it would be a nice way to accentuate the waist of a black dress. And then this, I'm pretty sure, is a shoe buckle, but you could use it to create a belt, I suppose, made out of all of these domed silver squares. So I thought that was neat and that the lot of them was worth $3. Then the grand finale piece that I purchased from them is a lady head vase. And I actually have an identical vase to this. I don't know if you'll actually be able to see it, but it's over there and it's storing feathers. And I found that vase at that store exactly a year ago. And I haven't seen anything like it at any of the other antique stores that I've been in since. It was so funny to go back into the exact same store and see the exact same one a exact year later. It just felt like fate for me to purchase this. So even though I didn't really need it, I decided to get it. Since bringing this home, I've been using it to store rulers, and I feel like it is the perfect addition to my sewing room. The next up we went to Crossroads Antiques. I did purchase 2 things from them. The first is a little chicken, and you see so many of these in Pennsylvania. This is one of the smaller ones, but they made them in every size you can imagine. So everything from just large enough to hold an egg to large enough to hold a small child. But the reason I purchased this is because right before we went away, I shattered the lid for the little container that I store bobby pins in. And that container was actually one that my grandmother had given me several years ago as a birthday present. Even though I think it was a mass-produced little container, it made me really sad that I'd broken something she had given to me. And then when we were in these stores, my mom kept saying that grandma owned one of these, and she had a little chicken pot like this in her kitchen. So I decided I would get one that was the right size for my bobby pins, and this way I can at least think of her when I look at it, even if it wasn't something that she gave me. Then I also purchased a pack of needles. Even though I didn't need these, I really liked the packaging. It's in a very pretty pink color and has a very pretty early 20th century woman on it, as well as some cats playing with yarn. So I thought it was really cute as far as vintage needle packaging went, and since I was already getting something else and it was only $1, I decided that I would get it as well. And then we went to Tollbooth Antique Market. Now I actually bought 3 things from this store, and it all started with these pants. So these are part of a 1940s summer navy uniform. So they're made out of a thick cotton uniform cloth. They do have some rust stains on them, but for the most part they're in good wearable condition. And I tried them on in this very hot warehouse over top of the pants that I was wearing. and they actually fit my hips really nicely. So I decided to get them, and I've already taken in the waist by about 4 inches, and now they fit me really well. And I'm really excited to get some wear out of these since I think they're very appropriate for the season. Then I bought another pair of 1940s military pants, and these are made out of a sturdy green wool gabardine of sorts. And these, I believe, are brand new, though they do have stamping on the interior of the waistline, so I don't know what that means. But they do have some moth nipples on them, so I'm planning on getting them dry cleaned and then making those repairs. And again, I saw these and I thought, I think those would fit me. And sure enough, they do. These actually fit me pretty well on the waist too, and they fit my hips really nicely. They run a little bit short on me since I am taller than the typical 1940s man, but I still really like them and I'm really excited to wear them when the weather gets a bit cooler. I don't know what it is about me and men from the 1940s, but we have a very similar body shape, which I'm not sure is necessarily the most complimentary thing to me or to them, but it's just a fact. The final thing I bought from them is a hat. I really did not expect to buy this. I kind of put it on as a joke, but then I really liked how it looked on me. But it smells quite musty, so if any of you know how to clean wool hats, then I would really appreciate any insights. The last stop of this day was Renningers Antique Market, which is another one that we've been to before and another one that we knew we liked. So this place had quite a bit of military items, it did some architectural salvage, it had some clothing, it had books, it had trains, it had toys, it had jewelry. Like, there really was something for everyone. However, I focused in on the hats. I'm actually missing one. I forgot to bring it out for this video, but I will include some footage of me wearing it. It is a beautiful hat that is absolutely covered with royal blue and red and yellow feathers, and it's ridiculous, but I love it, and it was very, very affordable. And then I purchased 2 more practical hats, and these were also around $8 or $10 each. They're both made out of straw, and before this, I didn't have any straw hats, which meant I hadn't been wearing a lot of hats in the summer because I felt like it was too warm for them. So when I saw these in very wearable colors, I got really, really excited. This one actually looks really cute with what I'm wearing now. So I think I'm going to get quite a bit of wear out of these throughout the warmer months of the year and hopefully many years to come. I kind of feel like just leaving this one on. But the thing I was most excited to see in this store was this figurine. So in case you don't know, I collect Florence Ceramics figurines, and I have for the past year and a half, 2 years maybe. They're a series of figurines that were created in the 1940s and 50s, and a lot of them were based on historical fashion plates. So the figurines tend to be wearing elaborate, dramatic gowns. Though I have a collector's book for them and I'm very familiar with all of the female designs, I don't know very much about the male figurines. However, when I saw this guy, I thought he had a lot of the Florence characteristics. So even though I didn't recognize the design, I felt like the way the gold work was done, the way it was painted, and also the way the hands were articulated and the color of nail polish that was used on it were all very reminiscent of Florence designs. So I was pretty confident that it was an actual Florence ceramic figurine, but knockoffs, and relatively good-looking knockoffs, are what eventually put Florence Ceramics out of business. So I wasn't sure if this was a fake or if it was just one of the figurines that I wasn't familiar with. But it was $14 and then it was 25% off, so I decided it was worth the risk of buying it. When I got back to the hotel that night, I was researching it and I couldn't find anything about the figurine. So I just assumed that I purchased a really, really good fake. However, when I got home and looked at the Florence Ceramic guidebook, I found out that this is a real figurine. It's just incredibly rare, and there's no evidence of it existing online because I don't think one has ever sold online. So it's actually a really, really fantastic find, and I'm so glad that I decided to purchase it, and I'm so glad that I have it in my life. Now, on our final fun-filled day of antiquing, we went to Strasburg, and we started with the Cackleberry Antique Mall. We'd never been here before, and it actually ended up being a really, really nice place. A lot of the things here didn't seem to be that old. I don't think you'd find priceless antiques here, but it was still fun to browse around in, and the prices were very reasonable. I ended up purchasing a couple pieces of jewelry, and I also bought a hat here. The hat was definitely the first thing that caught my eye, and it did come with its original box, which I think is really cool. It's in pretty much perfect shape. I don't think it's ever been worn. The front has all of these velvet pansies on it, as well as some smaller roses. I just think it's a really, really cute hat. I really love the shape of it. I love the bow, I love the flowers, I love the color. There's really nothing that I don't like about this hat, and I think it looks really, really cute on me. I don't necessarily have a dress that goes with it, but that's just an excuse to make a new dress, not a reason not to buy the hat. So when I first saw these, I thought they were a brooch, and then I took them out and they were earrings. And that totally sold me on them because earrings are something that I wear a lot more often than brooches. I also really love weird earrings. I feel like earrings are something that people expect to be quite pretty and delicate and sparkly and lovely. So when they're a little bit weird, it just takes people by surprise in a really fun way. So the reason I mention that is because these are spiders. And they're not small, delicate spiders. These are like huge spiders. They've got a gold base and then they're covered with these white and amber tone stones. I've never seen anything quite like these, and they definitely fit in with my current collection of earrings. Then we went to Antique Village of Strasburg, which is a collection of 3 little shops. So I ended up purchasing a pair of eyeglasses, and I've wanted to find a pair of eyeglasses that I could use for an accessory for a bustle dress for a really long time. I don't know why I feel like glasses and bustle dresses are a classic combination, because glasses weren't even particularly popular during the bustle era, but that's just an accessory that I want when I end up making one of these dresses. So I've been on the lookout for a while, and I finally found ones that fit the bill. These say that they're from the 1950s, but they look a lot older to me, very reminiscent of styles from the early 20th century. And they've got really pretty detailing around the lenses, as well as across the nose piece. It also has the very thin arms, which were very common in the first half of the 20th century. So I feel like these are a really cool accessory for a older project in the future, even if they aren't quite historically accurate. And then I also, shockingly, bought a military uniform. I don't know what it was about me and this trip and military uniforms, because we really didn't see that many of them, but all the ones we did see were in my size, and I bought them. So for example, this winter naval uniform from the 1940s was a whopping $10, and it was in my exact size. The top is in pretty much perfect condition. I don't know if I'm actually going to end up wearing it though, because I feel like I have a mild allergy to it. It also has a rank on it, which I don't feel super comfortable wearing, but I suppose I could remove that, unless that's considered blasphemous. I don't really know the rules with vintage military uniforms, but I definitely don't want to offend anyone or to seem insensitive in any manner. Even if I don't wear that, the main thing I purchased this for were the pants. So again, these are kind of short on me, but they have a really interesting closure method. However, I do have to get these dry cleaned because there's a suspicious white stain on one of the legs, and I think there's probably a semen joke in there somewhere, but I'm not gonna make it. The final place we went was Country Loft Antiques, and this is probably my favorite of the Strasburg small antique stores. I didn't actually get any footage in here because it was pouring rain by the time we got to it, but I did purchase 2 things from it. So the first thing was this purse. I think this is probably from the 70s and it's not in perfect shape. There is some scuffing to the fake leather that was used on this, but it seems very sturdy and durable and very usable and wearable. The rest of it is made out of straw, and I don't see any breaks to that. It also has an opaque lining. It opens with a fold at the side so nothing falls out. And then I purchased a little brooch. So I think this is probably from the 1930s, but I'm not sure. I just like the color of this. It's in a really lovely pale aqua tealish tone, and it's of a biplane, and then it has a rhinestone on either wing. I just think it's lovely, even though every time I wear it I'm gonna instantly have the song Biplane stuck in my head. I'll link that down below so you can all have it stuck in your head too. So the last couple of things I have to share were all from Renningers Antique Market, which is a market that only goes on Sundays. And there's one seller who had a whole bunch of vintage patterns. So I ended up purchasing quite a few, though even with all I purchased, I still regret not getting more. So the first one is an advanced pattern, which is probably from the 1950s, and it is for a size 16, which has a 34-inch bust. And I believe this is complete, and it was $4. This one was $8, and it is a McCall's coat and hat pattern from the tail end of the 19s, and it is made for a 34-inch bust. I don't really like this pattern, but once I knew it came with the pattern for the hat, I felt like I had to get it, because I've never seen that before, and I thought it might be really fun to make a video about. I also bought an advanced shorts pattern, which I am so excited about because I've been altering other patterns that I have to try and get a passable shorts pattern, and none of them are quite right. So I cannot wait to follow this, and it is made for a size 20, so it is intended for a 36-inch bust, and it will definitely accommodate my hips, which is a rarity with vintage patterns. In addition to that one, this is probably my favorite. This is a early 1950s pattern by Advance, and it is for a 36-inch bust. It has all these ruched details on it, which is actually kind of reminiscent of the nylon blouse that I purchased. This is sealed and it is factory folded, which is a miracle because usually when you see these patterns, the actual guidelines for doing the shirring work and the pleating are all missing. So you can't actually follow the pattern. But with this one you can, which I think is so cool, and I'm so excited to try and take this on. I also bought a Vogue pattern for a blouse, and this is from the 1930s, I believe, just based off of the silhouette. Then I bought my first vintage butterick pattern, which is from the 1950s, and just for a simple kind of half circle skirt style. And then I got another very similar pattern to that, which is from McCall's. And they had so many cool skirt patterns I left behind because they weren't my size. But looking back, I wish I'd bought them because they were such a good deal and just scaled them up to fit me. So that is probably my biggest regret from the trip, is not buying more of those. But I am really happy with the patterns that I did buy, and I think I paid $30 for the lot of them, which I feel is a really good deal. I was just grabbing the other thing I purchased from that seller and I realized that I forgot a pattern. So this is another size 18 unused Vogue pattern. This is for a suit. So I don't have any patterns for suits in my collection, and I really, really liked this one. Now the last thing I purchased from that seller isn't a pattern, but it is a piece of clothing. Actually, it's two pieces of clothing. It is I'm not going to be able to pronounce what these are called. Peignoir, maybe? It is basically a fancy 1950s nightgown, and I think these are just the prettiest things. They're so feminine and girly, and then once I watched The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, I wanted them even more because she's constantly stomping around in them and partially done hair. I just think it is so glamorous, and I want to be that glamorous. So I've been tempted by these, but I've never known if they'd fit me. I've never quite known what the condition would be. I've never had a reason to buy them. But this one was in my size, it was in my favorite color, and I just thought it was really, really cute. It's also in really, really good condition. I purchased quite a few paper items from another booth at Renningers, and I wanted to go back to this booth because I remembered it from last year. I actually purchased a Harrison Fisher print from them, and when we got home I really regretted not getting two of the prints so I could hang them side by side. So I was hoping this time around that they would still have some of the prints in that size left, and that I could get it a little friend. And unfortunately they did not, but the woman who was helping us was just incredibly sweet and kind, really helpful when it came to finding prints I'd be interested in. So I did end up getting quite a few, even if I did not get my Harrison Fisher print. So these are from the Delineator, and this one's from 1911, but a lot of them are from the 19s in general. I just really, really liked these, and I thought they were perfect for reference when making something in the future. So I got some for winter, since that's the season we're going into, as well as some more classic blouse designs and pieces for summer. The two standouts that I purchased, which aren't from the Delineator, include this ad for Paul Poirier. His designs tend to be very colorful and very unique, and I thought this was an absolutely excellent example of one of them, and that it would be really fun to make something inspired by this. But my favorite of all favorite prints is this one. So this is from a magazine from the 1890s, and it says, "The balloon sleeves, the troubled dream of the bill-haunted husband." And it's this picture of this like chubby-faced woman who has a dress on with these huge sleeves that have been so greatly exaggerated and actually decorated with strings so they look like hot air balloons. I thought this was a really interesting example of turn-of-the-century humor regarding women's fashion, and it really fit in with the things that I like to collect nicely. The colors in this also match my bedroom and my sewing room really, really well, so I think I'm going to get it framed and it will either end up back there somewhere or somewhere in my bedroom. So the last two purchases on this trip were also from Renningers, and they're hats. So I purchased these from the outside portion. First one is made entirely out of straw. So it has a navy straw base, and then all of the flowers on it are actually made out of wrapped straw. And the embroidery on the top of it is straw too. I just thought this was beautiful, and I really loved the colors in it and how lightweight it was. This is something that I envisioned myself getting a lot of wear out of throughout the summer months. Then the next one I debated really, really hard about because it was quite expensive. I believe this hat was $40 in the end, which is twice the price I've ever paid for a 1950s hat before, but it's gorgeous. So it is covered with pearl beads and rhinestones and metallic threads, and it is just stunning. I've never seen craftsmanship like this in detail work on any hat before, and it really is in impeccable condition. The lining looks like it's completely unworn. So I thought this was just beautiful, and this was the type of thing that I probably wasn't going to see again, and I'd probably regret leaving behind. So believe it or not, that is everything that I purchased on this trip. I know I purchased quite a lot. It was definitely more than I thought I purchased. Just getting it all laid out is kind of crazy. But I am really happy with everything that I purchased, and it was such a fun trip. I really, really enjoyed it, and it's so nice to spend that time with my mom. And spend that time looking through stores and looking at things that I love so much. And I'm glad that I could take some of those things back with me. I hope you enjoyed seeing all of them up close and have enjoyed my other videos about Lancaster throughout this week. If you haven't seen them, they will be linked somewhere around this video as well as in the description box down below. But before I sign off, I do want to show you two things that I didn't purchase on this trip. Though one of them I did see on this trip. So the second to last store we went into was Wheel Antique Center. And even though I didn't buy anything in this store, I did see something I adored. It was just a little bit too big to fit in our car, given all of the other things we'd already put in the car. and it was an antique Vogue sewing pattern cabinet that would have been used in a general store during the turn of the century. I fell in love with this cabinet, and I really wanted it, but it was very, very expensive, and I didn't think it would fit in our car. I just couldn't justify it. But we went home, and I spent the entire week thinking about that cabinet. Like, it was the only thing on my mind was this cabinet, and what a one-of-a-kind piece it was, and how much I was going to regret not getting it. So with some encouragement from people on Instagram and from my mom, I ended up calling the store, putting a hold on the cabinet, getting them to measure it for me, measuring our car, and then going back to the store with my dad to pick it up and pay for it. So this is the most money I've ever spent on anything other than a computer or a camera, but I really, really love it. I just wanted to mention that because that was the biggest purchase, and it was definitely inspired by the trip. I should also mention that I got them to take $300 off the price, so it wasn't as expensive as I originally thought it was going to be, but it was still expensive. And then, on the way home from picking up the cabinet, I found 2 other antique stores that I figured we could go to that were in the area. And neither of them were very good. One of them was in an actual mall, which I've never seen before, though I did end up purchasing 2 1940s hats from them that were $3.50 each, so it wasn't a total loss. And then the other one was just kind of confusing and difficult to walk through, and there wasn't a ton that jumped out to me. But they did have a spool cabinet. So in the last week, I've been talking to my mom about the trip, and she asked me what thing I regretted not getting, and I told her that I regretted not getting a spool cabinet, or not considering a spool cabinet. Just such a fantastic example of turn-of-the-century furniture and antiques, and it really combines my interests in antiques and in furniture and in sewing into this perfect, functional, practical bundle. So I said that that was something that I really want to consider next time. Then we went into the last store of the trip, and they had a spool cabinet, and it was a beautiful spool cabinet. It's the largest one I've ever seen. It's about twice the normal size. So it's 33 inches wide and 20 inches deep. It has these beautiful huge drawers and had all of the glass plates and text intact, which is very rare. Usually those are cracked or repaired in some way. And it also had an open top to it, so I would be able to store a whole bunch of paper and patterns and rulers and things in there. It was just too big to fit in her car and too big to fit in my current space. Or so we thought. So we ended up leaving that store and getting lunch and then going back to that store because I was still thinking about it. And we measured our car and we measured the unit and it fit. So I had to get it. And I've already filled it up and it's just such a nice addition to the space, even though it still doesn't really fit in this space. But yeah, I love it. So that was kind of a side trip to Pennsylvania, but not part of the main trip to Pennsylvania that I just wanted to mention in this video. So now, that is the end of this, and I really hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to all of you very soon and be back with my normal sewing-related content and vintage clothing-related content with less of the antiques and knickknacks mixed in. So I do want to make a video all about my figurines someday, but I know that video is going to cause me to lose subscribers, so I'm not going to do it just yet. Thanks again for watching, and I shall talk to all of you very soon.